Do you want to learn the best, simple way to make the perfect kind of small hole in your cardboard project? The first way to make a hole in your cardboard is what we're gonna get right here. It's a little hairy, but we take our knife. It works best with one of these small razor blades, but if you're gonna make a bigger hole, it can work with a bigger utility knife as well. Just punch the knife into your cardboard. You don't need to go all the way through, and then spin it, and we're gonna keep spinning that knife until it gets all the way through, slowly making a hole in the cardboard. You can see here we got a bit of a messy hole here, and on the back we might want to go from here as well, because sometimes it creates a bit of a slanted hole. And once we spun it around and kept cutting to get to the size that we want, we have our hole in the cardboard. Now, the biggest advantage of this is that it's really fast and it's kind of versatile, because you can make small holes by using just the tip of your knife, or bigger holes by pushing it in and spinning it for longer. The biggest disadvantage is pretty obvious. You get a lot of hairs inside here because you're just spinning it. You're kind of just mushing up the cardboard. And also what can happen is it doesn't always turn out perfectly round. Usually it does, but there are times, just depending upon the grain and stuff, that like your hole doesn't turn out 100% perfectly round. There are a ton of different uses for holes, so it's totally going to depend upon what you want to do, which of these 5 hole making methods works best. Because our next method has a ton of advantages. You're just going to use a hole puncher. So if you want to make a hole about this size, stick your hole puncher on, boom, hole, boom. Much faster, a bit easier. Now, the biggest disadvantage here is that I can't hole punch in the middle of something. If I want to put a hole here, I could do it with my previous method, the first method, but a hole puncher is never going to be able to get to the middle unless you got some sort of specialty long hole puncher. Now, the hole puncher is super clean. You can compare right here. It's super easy and super fast. In some cases, it might crush the cardboard a little bit, but that's super minor. Sometimes we get locked into always using the same kinds of tools on our cardboard projects, and there could be a lot of advantages in changing it up. So let me know in the comments below, what is the most unique tool you have ever used on your cardboard crafts? Number 3 is to use a small wire or pin, or you could even use a toothpick or a skewer. The thing we've got here is just a wire that I've cut, and if I want to make it sharper, I could cut it at an angle. You could do the same thing with a skewer, and I'm just going to punch this straight through the cardboard, and boom. You've got a hole. Now, it doesn't always look great, especially on the back side. You can see here that the hole is a bit hairy. If I wanted to, I could make this hole bigger by taking like a pencil or whatever else I wanted to use to make my bigger hole and jamming that the rest of the way through. Boom. Bigger hole. It looks really nice from this side because this is the side I pressed it in from, but on the back you're going to get this big ugly flange coming out of there, that big burr. And the same thing will happen if you use like a big skewer. Now the biggest advantage here is if I wanted to make like a pencil sized hole to fit a pencil, this would be nice and snug. That would work really well. And again, it's really fast. Now, if you're using a pin, this is one of the only ways to make a really tiny hole. Like, I'm never going to be able to make a hole that small with a knife or a hole puncher. So keep that in mind. The hole you're making, it totally depends upon what you want it to do. Our 4th method is to make an X slot. The final product is going to look just like this, and it's going to have a bit of a burr on the back. But what we do is we take our knife and make an X in our cardboard. Each side of this X needs to be the same width as the hole that you want to make. So if I've got a 1/2 inch diameter object, I want to make a 1/2 inch long cut. My pencil, I'll say it's a 1/2 inch, I don't know exactly. It fits just about straight through those. Now, if I wanted to push this through here, all I gotta do is push it through, boom, and it goes straight through. Very similar to what we were doing earlier, just pushing things through these holes with our pin, but now we have that assisted X slot happening. And the cool part about this is that it applies a little bit of pressure to the inside and keeps the things snug in there, much like what we did over here. But and this can be useful like in the middle of objects sometimes, just depending upon what you're trying to do. Something to pay attention to is that this works great for medium-sized things, not super tiny things because you can't make an X that small, and super big things it isn't going to work very well either because those flaps from the X are just going to be so large. And our last strategy is going to get us into big holes. This is where we just cut it with our knife. There are many ways you can optimize how you're cutting cardboard depending upon what you're trying to do, and we're about to jump into just one of those. So if you're already getting getting value out of this video, consider subscribing and smashing the like button. I also will have a cardboard cutting playlist linked in the description down below. For cutting holes in cardboard, you're going to really want an X-Acto knife, a small one like this. There'll be a link in the description. I've got a number 11 blade because that's just standard, and I've already cut out 2 large circles from this cardboard. I'm going to use a glue stick as my reference because it's a nice medium large object. You can do this with really big circles, as you see I've already done, and it gets more and more difficult as you get smaller. You'd probably want to switch to one of these other methods. And now the trick is to use your knife and just punch through one layer of cardboard, moving in a saw-like motion all the way around your circle, not worrying about cutting all the way through at all. Now while I'm cutting, I'm being sure to use just the tippy top of the blade, because if I tilt it way down at a long angle, it's going to be a lot harder to cut the cardboard because I'm going to be making these long cuts. So I want to keep it straight up and down as much as I can, and then be aware of which side I might be sacrificing. Because I'm trying to cut a hole, I don't worry about what's on the inside, this circle. I don't care about that. I want the outside edge to look nice. So if I'm going to make a mistake, I'd rather cut into the middle like that than have an issue where I accidentally went to the outside. And now, while I'm doing this fine cutting, I want to keep it down on a hard surface. It makes it easier to maintain control right here as I'm going around. You'll also find it easier to cut if you keep your hand in a comfortable position and rotate the cardboard as much as possible. So I just got my first pass completed all the way around the edge. You can see that I've got it partly cut through. Now, what I'm going to need to do is cut all the way through now, because we didn't worry about the back. There's actually nothing cut on the back. If you want to, you can go around this again, just cutting through that top layer or maybe getting a little further through. But for me, I'm going to go straight to the end. I'm going to punch my knife all the way through, and now instead of holding it down where I have a lot of control, I'm going to want to put it up in the air. My previous cut is going to help guide my razor blade around this circle, but I still have to be careful as I cut the rest of the way through. This isn't going to make the cleanest cut because we're holding it up in the air, but it's going to be the easiest because we don't have to worry about only cutting part way through, because my knife is sticking all the way through the cardboard. If I had it on the table, I might not be sure if I'm getting through. It would require more force from my hand, which gives me a more high chance of making a mistake. Once again, focusing on using that top part of the razor blade where it's thinner, because the bottom thick part is going to have a hard time getting around these curves. One huge advantage about just cutting a circle out with your knife is that you can also cut out any size. So if I wanted to go super small, I could probably get about this size, no smaller, and still get a circle. Or I can go really big or even bigger, and this is still going to help you. You can also cut any shape. So if I wanted to cut a square out of the cardboard, I could cut this guy out right here using the same kind of methods, and it would still look amazing. Well, I just finished cutting all the way through. We can pop this out. We got a nice medium large hole right here. It's a little rough on the inside, and the hole puncher is by far the smoothest. I'd say this is probably cleaner than any of the other methods, except for maybe punching through with a small poker thing. But do you actually want to cut circles out of cardboard? If so, I've got a detailed video right here that you can click on to check out how to get these round sections out of the middle, or click on this other video right here that YouTube has selected for a person just like you. Have a blessed day, and I hope to see you in another video.